This is quite a personal story. And I just wanted to say that I've really enjoyed listening to the talk so far. I think I'm getting imposter syndrome just from listening to everyone's wonderful stories. So how good is that? The one context where it might be a good thing. So this is a picture of me in my teens, and it kind of reflects what I was like all throughout my childhood. I've never really thought of myself as a data scientist. I still don't. I've been a biologist ever since I was a child. And I would rescue baby birds that had fallen out of their nests, as I'm doing in this picture. You know, I would catch frogs. I'd hatch butterflies from caterpillars and hold these elaborate funerals for dead squirrels that I found in the park. And when I was just a young child, a robin built a nest under my parents' balcony, and we could actually watch through the like a gap in the planking as the eggs turned up, and then the eggs hatched and the like little hatchlings grew up. And this was like one of the defining things in my childhood is all these sort of animals. And I was quite lucky as well to grow up in a family of strong women. My mother is an engineer even today. She's excellent at math. She was able to help me with my math homework from the time that I was very young, all the way through BC Calculus in high school. My aunts on both sides had degrees in physics and psychology. I never grew up questioning my ability to become a scientist. In high school, I thought I wanted to work on animal behavior. So myself and a fellow student, we were in an oceanography lab, which was led by a woman named Lisa. Her photos in the bottom left corner. She's one of the first people who really encouraged me to get into science. And so we ran this octopus through mazes and got it to get food at the end of the maze. And I actually remember that that it would constantly outsmart us, and it would outsmart our mazes and bypass all the obstacles in a way that we didn't expect to get to the food. So a metaphor, if you will, for hopefully women doing their jobs in science and in this field. And then later on in my university years, I got into field ecology. So still continuing on this side, no idea about data science. Did a bunch of field work with frogs. So essentially, I waded enthusiastically into like swamps and marshes at dusk, and with cameras and recording equipment to record the mating calls of these frogs, and really, really enjoyed that. I actually did an honors project on some of these frogs, and I did species distribution modeling, which is my first sort of dip into data science as a student. I did end up finishing the honors project. And it was supposed to be, I wanted to publish it as sort of my first ever paper as quite a young student. And unfortunately, and I'm sad to report that the professor I was working with at the time ended up putting his name first on that paper at the last minute. And that was a setback that at the time I was a little too young to understand or really fight back against. But it's something that sort of stayed with me as something I hope that doesn't happen to other people, and something that, we need to keep an eye out for when it comes to supporting young women in science. However, I have put also the pictures of two of my great mentors during these times, Dr. Matthias on the top, and Dr. Heidemann, Paul Heidemann This was a long time ago. These were amazing mentors during my time at uni, and are instrumental to the fact that I got through this period as well. And then after uni, I was actually lucky enough to score an internship and later a job at the US National Museum of Natural History, which has been absolutely defining in my career. And I was there for more than 5 years, I believe. And I was lucky enough to be placed under the mentorship of not one, but two of the most inspiring female scientists I've ever known. On the left bottom in the middle is Kay Berensmeyer. She's one of the leading taxonomy experts pretty much in the world. And then Kate Lyons, who's assistant professor at University of Nebraska-Lincoln today, but at the time was working at the museum. these two women have done so much for me, and I'm so grateful to them. They kept me involved in field work. So here on the left, I have a photo of me visiting an elephant sanctuary in Kenya, which is where Kay did a lot of her field work. So she actually took me along. They helped me publish my first paper, first authored this time. They invited me to become a part of a working group, which was a huge part of my research life for the following decade. And then working as an assistant in their lab, I actually nurtured my computer science skills a fair bit. And so I became very proficient with R programming, databases, and geospatial programs. And all of those things are integral parts of my skill set today. I was also exposed to the sorts of research questions that still keep me going today. Because I was in the paleontology department at the museum, there's a photo of the collections there on the right. I became very interested in questions involving sort of change in deep time, so over very long time periods. We asked questions that attempted to bridge ecology and paleoecology with, to help with the environmental crisis going today. But on the subject of equity, I wanted to share a story that happened during this time, which is that once you sort of publish a paper, you start getting asked to do reviews. And as everybody in academia knows, reviews are usually anonymous. And at the time, now remember, I was 22, quite young, and I was a female. I didn't have my PhD. I had a bachelor's degree, no doctorate. So this was very interesting for me. So I actually got asked to do a review after I published my first paper, and I was like, okay, well, that's going to be fun. And I wrote a review. I was very careful about it, right? It was my first one, so I really wanted to do a good job, and I remember getting the response, and I don't think I had ever felt so validated in my entire life. Now, keep in mind, I was working with two amazing female mentors. I was in a place that was extremely supportive, and yet I had never, even in that environment, had never felt like people had paid so much attention to me as they did when I did my first anonymous review, and they didn't know who I was or how old I was or that I was a woman. And I think that's a really important story because it really, brings to light the fact that even when you don't know that you're facing obstacles and discrimination, you probably are. And it's only once no one knows who you are that you realize what it's like to, be maybe like a white male, I don't know, potentially. So that I thought was quite illuminating. I went on to do a PhD at Macquarie University. A colleague of mine at the time suggested to me that I work with her recent mentor who she just finished her PhD with, and that was John Alroy. So I did, and I got a scholarship to come to Sydney. So I met my first kangaroo. That was really fun. This is a picture of John here at my completion seminar. John is a heavily computational researcher, and he's an ecologist turned paleoecologist. So it was really under his guidance that I truly began to turn into a data scientist, though I wouldn't really have known it at the time. I was and still am interested in very big scale questions about community assembly and species distributions, and why things are where they are and how we can use that information to our advantage. I was also mentored during my degree by Dr. Drew Allen, whose picture is in the bottom left-hand corner. So data science for me is really about the big picture. It's many of the big scientific questions today take a huge amount of data and statistical power and computing power to answer. The ability to wield large data sets and analyze them with cutting edge technology makes me feel incredibly powerful. I actually remember the moment when I discovered apply and map, which are these looping functions in R, if anyone's familiar. And it allows you to sort of run the same analysis on a list of different data sets. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I feel like I've just unlocked a new magical power, and I have striven ever since then to share that with other people. So I got involved in coding clubs. I was the president of a student-led coding club at Macquarie for 2 years, taught lots of workshops, helped lots of students, still doing the same at UNSW. We have a coding club here. And so that's been absolutely fantastic, trying to share those things with others. Obviously, so now I'm at UNSW, been here since 2019.
Just 1 minute, Anikó.
No worries. This has been a huge blessing for me. I've been able to work remotely and whenever, from wherever I wanted, with a computer and a Wi-Fi connection, which is fantastic. Excuse me. And I also wanted to add really quickly that I've married an Australian. I have a son who's 1. So I'm now sort of adjusting to working 2 days a week. I'm with my son the rest of the time. But UNSW has been amazingly supportive. And I think in the grand scheme of things, I've been one of the lucky ones and one of the privileged ones. You know, it's how I want to sort of leave the audience with the question of like, how can we make sure that other people get this? You know, how can we make sure that other people, that little girls grow up with mothers who can help them with their maths homework all the way up to calculus? You know, how can we ensure that female academics are at universities that give them grants and workshops and support when they go off on mat leave? Like all of those things that I've had, I want to make sure that you know, others have as well. And so that's the question I want you to ponder, is like, how can a young girl growing up, you know, never question her ability to become a scientist if that's what she wants to do? Thank you.